Hey everyone, welcome to the Permission to Play podcast, a creative talk podcast where you have permission to be creative and to experience everything that comes along with the process. We are your hosts, myself, Christina Barcy. We have Kyle Dallatore and Yelpy, and of course Lloyd Robeson. Let's get started. Welcome back to our Permission to Play podcast. Today, we're all here this time. Yelpy is not away. He's here. We're talking about process, which I feel like completely follows the conversation we just had last week about inspiration. I feel the thing that immediately follows that is your process. So I'm curious for you guys, does it change for each project? Do you have a default process that something that always happens for you? This is the way I do it. Is it different when you collaborate or when you're working on your own? What else? Are there blocks that come up every time you kind of go through a process? Is there a whole life cycle process that, I have a giant creative process and I go through a cycle that takes way more time than like the individual per project process. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah,
that whole thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what do you guys think?
For me, honestly, first, let me go first. I want to talk first.
You're always first, Lloyd. You're number one.
So honestly, this is, this question for me is something I'm dealing with now, because joining, right now I'm trying to integrate myself into different communities throughout the acting world, because I spent so much time in isolation by myself working on different things that now it's like, okay, well, now I want to get out and meet people and see what's going on in Los Angeles and stuff like that. And so different mediums require different prep, which for me has been extremely eye-opening in how different my process is from project to project, from medium to medium. It is changing up, but there's one thing that in its essence is the same, and that is knowing that I'm good enough and coming at it with me head on first with who I am, and I'll figure the rest out when I get there. And that is when I step into a room, and this is on the acting side of it. When I step into the rehearsal process, if I'm going in for a reading and it's a 3-day rehearsal process for a reading, I want to come on that first day, eyes open, and see what comes out and see how the room's feeling, see what the director's saying. If I'm going into a process where I've got cast for a play, I'm going to come in there off book, ready to go, having ideas. If they need to change it, they can change it, but I'm coming in there extremely prepared. When I'm doing voiceover work, I'll come in there with just character. I know my characters, and I might be read through the script once or twice. And, obviously I scanned through to see if there were some big words in there that I didn't want to be fucking up on. It's like, okay, Lloyd, that word is. So, I'll do that. Make sure, yeah. Just make sure I'm not sounding like an idiot, but I'll go in there with character, because for me, voiceover is a very character driven medium. And so, I think with this question, I want to hear how that changes, especially in music, because like I said, I think it is just completely different in the mediums and the projects, and for me, it just seems like it's such a world of difference that the only way I can have any semblance of consistency is just heading into it as me and knowing that I'm good enough to jump into whatever process it is.
I think for music, it's different. I mean, music is, you're doing the same thing every time, right? You're writing a song. So personally, I only have two approaches. I have the approach of, I'm going to sit down and write a song today. And and that is hit or miss. And then there's the other approach of I like to linger and just linger around and wait until I'm inspired. And that's usually the more fruitful approach, but it takes much longer, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the sit down and write something straight away type thing. Sometimes I can sit down and I'll, bam. The second I start writing, it's something. Or sometimes I think the trick with that is know when to quit, so you're not wasting your time. So you just feel it. Like if you're writing, you go, no. You have to step away, come back to it later. That's my process. It's not very complicated.
I usually like to. I find this is just for personally myself. I like to try to write from the title if I can. Meaning that it's a great exercise and it's a great tool. Usually it's I'll start with some lyric, something that'll come, and I just love it and it speaks to me, and I'll ask what's the overall theme, or what would the title of this song be, and from there I can kind of reverse engineer things. I also have writing. What's awesome about music, and there's so many ways to be inspired about music, is there's a lot of different components. There's a rhythmic component, there's a melodic component, there's a lyrical component, and it goes beyond that as well. So any of those one could draw from to kind of get inspiration, or to kind of get you to the next step. So what I found that's usually my process for writing, and that just process has actually freed me up a lot. Maybe it's just having so many choices that's been very limiting for me, but I tend to, if I can narrow it down for myself, I tend to not get in my own way so much. So I really do, and I'm sure that process may change as I change, or as I grow older and find out that's not really serving me anymore. But it's been kind of, that pattern's been pretty riding that train for a while. And just because there's a certain almost ceremony about it, it's very, I don't know, it just kind of works for me right now. So who knows? Maybe I'll be a Yelpie one day and just sit down and be like, it's either a long day or a
short day.
Maybe I'll get there one day.
Ain't no such thing.
I think you're oversimplifying the process.
Oh my God, I love it.
So, Barcy, what about you?
Yeah.
For me, it does. There's things that are the same because I do so many things, but it does change based on what I'm doing. But what I know about myself is that it usually has to start with an emotion or an energy that I feel like I really want to convey, the thing that's on my heart that I want to get out into the world. So that's the inspiration, I guess. Enough to commit to a process and live with this idea long enough. And then from there, I know that I like systems. So depending on whatever I'm working on, it usually takes about 2 weeks. I know that's very systematic as well. It takes me about 2 weeks to create a system for what I just know that naturally that's where it ends up. I went through the Rolodex in my brain of the things I've done recently, and it almost always takes me about 2 weeks to figure something out enough that I can continue to do that thing that way for a long period of time. So that's kind of what I did when I wrote. But it changes. Like when I was writing Dimension, it was day by day, and I did sit down and I was okay with the long game, like Yelpie's long day, where I would just sit and just be like, this is the day I write. But sometimes nothing would come, and then I would go, I guess I'm just doing this again tomorrow. And I was okay with that. And I would just trust that, one of those days something would get written down. And that was it. That was the process. Very low expectations. But I needed to know that I had to go somewhere and do that thing where I sit somewhere for a while that's not my house and sit in front of the computer, even if I just sat there then that was the process. With things that do require more systems, like writing, for example, okay, that's writing too, but writing like a feature film, for example, where there's sort of a different process that comes with that. It's again usually just what do I need? What am I trying to get out of life in this moment? And it's very selfish to begin with. It's like, what do I need to get out of this experience? And it starts there, like, you know, do I want to be in this as an actor? Like, am I writing for myself? Am I writing for somebody else? Am I writing because there's something in my life I'm trying to solve, like an emotional puzzle, and then I just find ways to craft that together. It's like purpose serving, and that's kind of where my process comes from, serving some kind of purpose, and that always starts with an emotion or an energy that I'm feeling. It's hard for me to go into somebody else's process, like we talked in the last episode about, you know, when you're under pressure. So because this is my process, it's so hard for me to not be inspired by the thing I'm hired to do. I will fight it all the way. I will feel stressed out. I will fight it, and the people on the other side will feel it. So it's never good for me or them. That's how it starts. It really, and we'll get there. But if I'm not enjoying that process, then no one's going to enjoy it, because I know myself and I will just fight it the whole way through if I can't find myself in it. And I know that sounds kind of very self-serving, but as a creative, I have to start with me, I guess. Lloyd?
I think honestly that you mean you nailed it. It does really have to start with me. And like I was saying, you know, that's how I enter. You know, me.
Yeah.
Everything starts from here. Everything goes into it, and so I don't, you know, like I think that the processes are extremely different, but that's what I was saying earlier. It's just amazing how each medium requires a different piece of you, but it also requires all of you. You know, I guess all art does require all of you, but I mean, if you're not coming from yourself, then you know, I didn't really think of it. It's like how could you not come from yourself? I was gonna start talking about, you know, like when you know, we have our things that we do, and I know Christina, you're jumping into a lot of new shit right now, and so am I, and I'm finding it interesting learning how to come about certain things and learning a new process for certain things. Mm-hmm. And I would like to speak to that to see, you know, if you're coming at something new that's completely different than like singing or anything like that. You know, it's like, what's your process for learning your process? In a way, right?
That's a good one.
Right? It's like, you know,
research.
For example. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Research.
That's
for me.
Yeah. That's what I was
I just like jump in the deep end.
Research. I'm doing while I'm like literally I'll be like, great, this is my thing I'm learning, whatever this is, and I'll be learning, and then I'll do it, and then I'll learn it, and then I'll do it. I'll learn it, and I'll do it. Like literally just the longest day ever.
I recently I had to do, so I just released a music video, but the person that did the coloring I didn't like, so I had to learn color grading. So I just basically downloaded I was talking to a director and he said try DaVinci. Got DaVinci, opened it up, learned it, and then when I got stuck, I just Googled something and that was it.
That's why I YouTube the hell out of everything.
Mm-hmm. Fucking University of YouTube.
But even YouTube, I try and actually do it myself, and then I kind of, when I look at YouTube, it's when I've cracked, you know, and I go, okay, I need to know.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Yeah, I reverse engineer a lot of things.
Yeah.
I see something that I love, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, well that's where that is. Now how do I get there? You know, and then I figure out where I start. Then I figure out where I start from. But that's for like, and that's with editing stuff. It's like I just recently went through a new process, and it wasn't really much I could research. There wasn't really much I could like draw from. People were doing it, but it wasn't like people were telling their secrets. And the only way I found that I was able to get past, to be able to start to progress in that field, was to just get out there and start doing it. Like you were saying, Yelpy, just fucking get in there and just start doing it. And failing was the best teacher I ever had, because then I would learn exactly what not to be doing. And that, in essence, helped me create a process for where I start. Because you want to begin where, like with certain things, you want to begin where you can move forward, as opposed to beginning where you're just going to spend hours and hours of stumbling over to restart.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm a bit of a control freak when it comes to that kind of stuff. Like, I'm a bit of a control freak. I just, if I want something a certain way, instead of trying to get someone else to do it and try and convey that, I'm like, just give it to me, I'll do it. This kind of way. That's my attitude.
Yeah, it's like, I'll just get it done.
I relate to that. That's why I do so much shit myself. That's why I do so many different things. It's because, that's why you're learning color grading. Like, that's why, I learned editing. That's why. And also, when I learn things new when there's an opportunity that arises, and I go, oh, I don't know how to do that, but I want to do that. And so I've got 2 weeks. I've got 2 weeks to learn it. Okay, let's do this. And then
So what's your next step?
I just do it.
Her next project will be Pro Tools, won't it?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
What's your next step after you go, oh, yes, I'm going to do it? Then what do you do?
It's that same thing where I go through the questions of, do I trust myself to really do this? Is it enough to get it? Is it enough? Do I know people that will help me if YouTube can't? Like, I go through that laundry list, and then I do exactly what I get what I need, and then I work, learn, and I just do that until I'm satisfied with the product and within the time frame it needs to get done.
I don't even ask myself those questions. I literally just grab it and just go, and just like blind with blinkers on. Like, don't even. I should, like, that's great. Like, I think asking yourself those questions is really good. Sometimes I get in too deep, and I just like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My first step is YouTube.
Is what?
So YouTube. I usually just go on and go, how do you?
Yeah.
Learning how to. Beginners at, and I rely on that if I'm starting a new process. I do get away from that eventually, but it is for me a good visual start.
That helps me answer those questions. If I look at it and I go, can I learn this? Yeah, I think I can, and then I do that other thing.
And I read articles and stuff like that. I kind of like you were saying, I do research before I start something, and then I'll jump into it wholeheartedly. But I like this Yelpy approach, because I should do that lately.
I should do that.
I'm like looking at you, and I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah, just jump in there and just.
I should do that, but my opinion is like, my stupid opinion is, there's nothing I can't do. Give it to me.
Yeah,
like, in my head, that's like literally
that's
like, if I see. Yeah, but it's not always, because it means that it's going to be slower instead of getting someone who knows what they're doing, and then it might not be quite as good as. But I prefer the control aspect. I'm willing to give up it being perfect and just being okay, just so I have control.
So I can't remember where I read this, but there's like 3 tiers of things that you can have, and at any one time you can only have 2. Money can either cost nothing, like can either be cheap, can either be fast, or can either be good. You can only have 2 of those. So if you want something good and fast, it's not going to be cheap. You want something, you can pick. So I think it comes back to, I think when you're starting to take on new, like, I can do this or I can learn this, you also have to be really cognizant of, like, well, what 2 of those things do I what's my 2 tiers that I've got to pick off of? And if you have, like, if you don't mind it taking a while, then, you know, you can learn that skill. Or if it's a skill that you're going to have anyways down the line and you actually enjoy it, like you're kind of interested anyways. But if you're learning something that is just going to, like, you got to have a team. Like, I feel at the end of the day, like there's so much. It's surprising when you ask for help and people are like, okay, I'll teach you, or I'll do it, or like, can we work out a trade? You start to kind of build a community that way, and a trust and a reputation as an artist. Because it also, you know, you have to hit all the boxes. You have to be professional, very specific, like, and you can at least use each other as a community to do stuff like that. My hat's off to you guys. You guys are like, you just Yelpy learning coloring. Man,
I'm all about good and cheap.
Like, in fairness, though,
good and
like,
cheap, good and cheap.
But
Good
yeah,
Don't
and
be
cheap.
long.
Yeah.
Wow, but
It's
it's
like,
It's gonna take a
good,
while. It's gonna be
cheap.
good. It's gonna
Good
be
and cheap.
cheap.
but in fairness, I did want like, I did do the part where I was like, let other people do it because that's what they do. But
Yeah.
it was when it gets to the point when they're coming back and they're just going, is this what you want? And you're like, no. And then you're like, is this what you want? No. And then I just give it to me. I'll do it. That's when I just can't take it anymore and I have to do it myself because it's not their fault and it's kind of my fault. I'm not telling them exactly what they need to know to get it done. I don't know how to tell them because it's in my head. So I need to do it myself, you know, like
In my head.
The other reason I started learning a lot of stuff on my own is because when you do hand over the control of something you don't know anything about, you're trusting those people to give you the best value and the best product of what you're trusting their knowledge and their ability, and you're left at their mercy. And I've had a lot of I've done that, and I don't regret any of it because that in itself was a giant learning experience. But, you know, I spent way, way, way more money I needed to spend. And after learning stuff, I realized how easy it actually was. I could have done it myself. I could have learned it myself. But because I wasn't over that hump yet where I was in the Yelpy world of thinking I can do everything and anything, I was still in that space of like, well, I don't know how to do this. There's people that do. There's no way I'll be able to get up to the par that it needs to be for it to be the product I want. When in actuality, it's like, no, I could have done it. I could have figured it out.
That's what I realized. Most people who do shit, sometimes their knowledge is extremely attainable, and
Yes.
you know just much as they know as much about it as you do, because they
like
YouTube
lawyers, for
takes a turn.
example.
Yeah.
I even did my own bloody what do you call it?
Taxes?
Contracts?
No,
Okay.
no, my artist visa, $5,000 those liars wanted. It was like, it's piss easy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, people depend on, I mean, especially the market depends on people who don't have, like, they're like, somebody else will do it. Like, I've learned so many skills just by YouTubing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll show somebody something, they're like, whoa, what the fuck? I'm like, yeah, but that shit was easy as fuck. You just had to sit in front of the computer for a couple of hours. I mean, don't get me wrong, some of the programs cost money. Like, editing programs cost money, color grading programs cost money, instruments cost money. Well, you know, everything costs money.
Yeah, but there's a point where this is why it comes back to your community. Like, who do you know that has that shit? Like, who can you borrow from?
Yeah.
Who can you
lend?
Who can lend you some stuff? Like, how much money do you really need to spend on those things? Like, how important is it for you to keep all of these items for the
Those
next
things.
job? Are you just,
Exactly.
you know, can you do that later? Like, there's a lot of things that beg, borrow, steal, man.
Yep.
As an artist, you better learn how to do that real quick so that you can move on. Because it's so easy to, like, those three things, Kyle, like the money part for artists is a hard part.
Mm-hmm.
Most of us can't let go of that one. Like,
Barter.
What, like you said, can we trade? Can we
trade, man?
Can I just borrow this one piece of equipment for, a week so that I can go do this thing? Like, whatever. There's so many things you can do with your community.
Yeah,
And
there's a
yeah.
balance, right? There's a balance that you have to have, especially when you're doing a new process and when you're jumping in a new process, you have to decide whether or not that process is something that you totally want to go gung ho on and spend your time doing it. And I'm mainly speaking about like skills that you may not have to finish a project or to continue working on a project. You have to decide, okay, well, do I do this process and learn how to do this, or is it better for me to outsource this? And that's where I always go to YouTube. I'll YouTube that shit, and if it looks easy, I'll do it myself. And there are certain things that I just won't touch. You know, I'm like, nope, that's way too hard. I'm not going to do that, nor do I want to start the process in learning how to do that, because that's like a year process in learning how to do it, and like $1,000 in software and hardware. You know, and so
That's a good point.
you know, there is a balance in jumping in a new process and learning, and like learning if you want to do it or not. And I think YouTube is great for that. YouTube, shout me out, bro. Hit me up.
YouTube.
Follow me
Promote.
at Lloyd Roberson.
Yeah, right.
Second.
YouTube. You know, that's a good point, because I most likely, who knows, I don't want to say never, but I most likely won't try to be a graphic designer. Like, it's just not,
Yeah.
I'm not that kind of artist to begin with. And for me, that's such a bigger thing than just learning a technical skill. Like, I'm going to have to hire somebody for that, or ask somebody I know, or talk to somebody and spend some money. You know, like those, it's true. You're right. You've got to bring in your limitations. You have to know what those are too, when you're trying to jump in. Like, you know, and some people can do have more of that. Some people have, you know, but you do have to try sometimes things that you think you can't do to find out what those limits are.
Get a little Yelpy juice.
Yeah. That sounds disgusting.
Sounds beautiful.
Oh, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
That's
When I said disgusting, that my subtext was glorious.
Other
I want it
disgusting.
all over me.
This is what that Yelpy juice. Drink it up. Go. I'll do anything. Fucking give me that shit.
Oh my god.
I'm an architect. I'm a designer, graphic designer, novel designer. I make soy sauce and sriracha.
Mixed together.
The best this side of Agora Hills, y'all.
Yeah. Agora Hill. I got a great question. Who loves Kyle more?
Stop
And
it.
the
Me.
answer is me.
I
Stop it.
I'm
Plus
number
whatever
one.
you guys say.
No. I love you so much for doing that. No. I love you. I love you guys. You guys are so wonderful.
You complete
We
me.
love you.
You complete me.
I say 1 plus whatever you guys say.
do. And plus infinity. For me.
Do you guys think that you would be friends with your parents if they were the same age as you? So, like, for instance, if you're like 25, would you be friends with your mom or your dad when they were 25? Like, you were the same.
Now I have to pretend that I'm 25 on top of.
No, you just do whatever.
Wait, you're not 25?
Yeah, I mean, I'm
for
20.
25.
I'm 26.
Oh, 26. Okay.
I think I
the
would.
answer to that question for me is yes.
Me
Hell
too.
Me too.
My parents,
Kyle?
My parents are cool.
Yeah, actually, I would. I would be friends with my parents.
Yeah, you guys all better say, yeah, you know your mama and probably.
No, but like,
You
there's
gotta
a
say
certain.
yes.
There's a certain age that, like, if me and my mom hit, like, it'd be like, nah, like,
What age is that?
40. Like, if we would not get along. We would just. She's a little stressed, and I get it.
Well, when you get 40, you'll understand. You don't even know. You gotta choose an age you know about, because you don't know nothing about how you're gonna be when you're 40.
I have a really
Over
good
here
idea.
tripping. You better say, Mama, she tripping. Don't even worry about her.
Stop it.
Maybe that's why you would be friends, because you'd be like, girl, you just need to chill. Like, let me help you.
Hey, man. You just need to smoke more weed.
Right, like
You're gonna do that in 10 years and be great.
like you'd be that friend,
get
like
earlier.
like letting her like you're like opening up her mind and being like, you're right. I just need to chill.
Yeah, you know what? Your mama needed you at 40, and where were you?
Right? Fucking it's so selfish.
It's so selfish.
So
I wish we had a time machine. We could go back and hang out with our parents when they were younger.
Yeah, that would actually be really fun.
I think I like my parents better as they get older, actually.
Yeah.
Well, my dad's having trouble because he's got diabetes and he's on medication. I feel like that fucks with his mood a lot. Like he's got no energy to be himself, which that part sucks. But I'd say maybe like a few years ago then, maybe like 5 years ago. But older versus them in their 20s. They didn't speak English very well back then, first of all.
First of all.
So I don't know if we could talk, actually. And then secondly, like, they were probably really stressed out, like, being in a new country, not being able to speak. Like, like, I think I like them better older. They figured out who they are.
I'd be friends with you if we didn't speak the same language, Christina. I'd be like, oh, your face is so pleasant to look at. Can we just be friends? But we wouldn't be able to understand each other, so it would be more.
I don't think I've ever heard that as a compliment. Oh my God, you're so pleasant.
You're pleasant to look at. Like
my face is pleasant.
Your face is so pleasant.
I don't understand why she didn't call me.
Yeah, maybe it's not like
she was so pleasant.
Yeah. Girl, your face is pleasant.
Girl, your
Thank
face.
You.
Yeah, right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasant.
I'm part of the pleasant people eater, and your face is making me hungry. Nom, nom, nom.
Kyle, you knocked Kyle out with that. Look at her
so good.
Legs up. Yes.
Oh my God, Lloyd.
Heard that one before.
You must have been in comedy sports at one point. Or you must have taken groundlings classes. It's too good. Your comedy is too good.
Oh my God. I love it.
I love you guys.
I love you guys. Including you, listeners. We love you too.
What?
Listen, everybody needs
listeners.
to home and take a little bit of Yelpy juice.
Kyle's like, who are they? What?
Well, you froze. So
I froze again? Fuck.
Yeah.
We love you. Bye.
Thanks for listening.
Not as much
Bye.
as we love Kyle.
It's
quite pleasant, listeners.
Quite pleasant to look at.
Kyle +1.
I love you.
Thank you so much for listening from all of us here at Permission to Play podcast. We hope you invite a little more creative space and permission into your day. We'd love to hear what you think by leaving us a review on iTunes. Please subscribe and share, and you can also find all of us on social media. Till next time, and don't forget to play.